What's up, everybody? Welcome. It's that time of the week. It's Crush Live call-ins every single Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. That's when we do this live stream. We cut up the best hands and we put them as YouTube videos. I'm Bart Hanson here from Crush Live Poker. Welcome to another week. It's August 8th here, and it is warm in the Boston area. I got to play a live session last night at Chasers, which I will review on the flagship podcast of Crush Live Poker tomorrow. Ended up being 10-20, even though 2 weeks ago, the biggest game in the whole state was 2-5, 1K cap. They raised the cap, and we played straddles. I had a good session. Very, very fun time. I got up there for 4 or 5 hours. But if you do want to get on this show, you must pre-submit your hand. That's right, you must pre-submit your hand by shooting us an email, which is in the link in the description. If you're a Crush Live Poker subscriber, you will always get priority to be on this show, and you'll get a personalized response from me. And I want to welcome everybody in the live chat for keeping it real. So yeah, I do have a new setup here a little bit. I will be moving offices. I'm not in the attic. I just have these acoustic pads behind, but we're going to be going through some different things. But I don't think it's too dark. I mean, I test the exposure and stuff. It just looks different because of the black background. But yep, we're here again. We're doing this live, and I just came off today. Man, I was going to be, I'm going to do a simple hand review from an interesting hand that was playing the Hustler between Garrett and Andy and Han. And I was like, it'll only take me like an hour. And then I'm just super OCD when I go and edit it. It's just something that I never thought. I had no interest in video editing or anything like that. But going through the process of being in training videos and getting into YouTube, it's actually something that I quite enjoy now. So let's get into it here on this Monday, August 8th. And we have a lady here, who's going to be first. This is Megan. Megan, can you hear me? Hello? Right now you're muted. Can you unmute yourself, Megan?
Yeah. Hey, Bart.
Hi, how's it going? Just speak up just a little bit.
Yeah,
And
sure.
yep, Megan, you got a hand for us?
Yeah, this is a 1-3 hand.
Okay.
400 effective. Played at Elements Casino up in Victoria, BC, Canada.
In Victoria, BC. So I went to, is it Edgewater in Vancouver? We actually did a Crush Live
Yeah.
Poker seminar back in 2013, and just a sort of a test seminar. Dave Tuckman and I went up there when his kid was a baby, was now like 8 years old, and there was another casino in the downtown area I went to too, but I've never made it over to Victoria Island. But so 1-3 400 buy-in. Okay.
Yeah, so I've got King of Spades, Six of Spades in the big blind.
All right. So hero in the big blind, and you guys, and are you about 400 effective?
Yeah, I've probably got a bit more than that, but
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, so this is a limp happy table, and there's 4 limpers. I think it was like under the gun, a couple in middle position, the button, and then I just checked.
So 4 limpers. I was gonna say hopefully this is gonna be a limp pot, or you're just defending heads up to a small range. But 4 limpers. Here has King Six of Spades, checks the big blind, and you say this is not uncommon for this game, huh?
Yeah, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, 5 ways to the flop,
Uh
and
huh.
the flop comes King of Diamonds, Six of Hearts, Two of Diamonds.
So King Six Deuce. You have King Six. So you have top two.
Yeah, top two.
Yep.
So I bet out 10 into like a pot of 15.
Okay.
And
So hero bets 10 here. Now, uh, I love when people submit limp pots to me too, which is part of the reason why I picked this hand. Obviously, there's absolutely nothing wrong here with leading out. One of the things I say about this spot sometimes in limped pots is that it's interesting when you're playing in limp pots and low stakes. I almost like to play a little bit backwards in the sense where if I flop a big hand like a set or something like top two, I want to get as much value as possible, and sometimes I want to reduce my fold equity. I actually want to reduce my fold equity, which means that you don't want anybody making any hero folds with like King X or something like that. So sometimes I might not check raise, but when I have a big draw, I'll maximize my fold equity through check raising. With that being said, though, here, if anyone's gonna bet off a king here, no matter what, because it's a limp pot, and you said you're a little bit deeper than 400, I might consider making a small check raise here, going for a small check raise. If I'm pretty certain that someone's gonna bet off a king, your hand is not as vulnerable, as having like bottom two or even top and bottom. I obviously have no problem with the lead. It's just a little thought.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't even considered that. I usually just donk bet if I
Yeah,
hit in
that's
a limped
fine.
pot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's fine too, because you are, like I said, you're really reducing your fold equity, like donking out with set of deuces, set of six, something like that. Okay, so you bet 10.
Yeah, and under the gun called and button called. So
Okay,
two
so
callers.
UTG calls, which is interesting, and button calls because UTG, of course, I mean, I'm not saying that people are playing anywhere near what they're supposed to be playing at this level, but with a bunch of people behind him, he really should have a king here or like a diamond draw. Like he shouldn't be calling with sevens or eights. The button overcalls, he could have a king. People play all kinds of hands, obviously at this level. So you put in 30 on the flop. So the pot's like probably like 42 or something like that. You know?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
After rake, I guess. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Uh, yeah. So the turn's a 9 of spades.
That's a pretty big brick.
Yeah. So I continued betting. I bet 30 into, yeah, I thought like 45, but it's probably a little less.
Okay.
Under the gun folded, and the button min raised to 60.
So under the
It's
gun.
really got my spidey senses going.
So under the gun folds and button min raises. Min clicks. I'm gonna say min click
Yeah.
to 60. A couple things here too. Surprising that surprising the under gun fold. Just because, again, like, what is he calling with there next to act and then folds on the turn? I mean, maybe if he had just a dry flush draw or something and didn't pick something up, something that was a flush draw that didn't pick, although most of them were going to pick up some sort of pair or a straight draw with that 9 coming. Sometimes if it's a total brick that just doesn't connect with anything, once in a while you can, again, go for a check raise on turn thinking that next act player is going to actually bet. But that's going to definitely increase your fold equity. So I have no problem with you just continuing to bet here. You don't want a king to check through. And now the button min clicks to 60. So if you guys started just over 400 here, I mean, here's the thing. This is straight out of small stakes exploits in Crush Live Poker small stakes exploits theory. I don't like to give the betting lead away with a hand that I think is pure value, because what ends up happening is if you were to call, and let's say the river's a brick, and this guy was kind of playing a stop raise in position, which means that he's like raising to take a showdown, he's just going to check it
Right.
back a lot. So the only thing that the 9 changes here is that you're losing now to king 9, which is obviously possible if he was slow playing deuce deuce, and obviously there's one combo of 6-6. The question becomes like, is your hand strong enough to 3-bet here on the turn? It's probably kind of in between. You know,
Yeah.
would a
Okay.
guy would he overcall with like 9-9? I just hate to lose a lot of value, but then again, you know, there's a lot of rivers and stuff that can come. I think king deuce and like 6 deuce would be square just calls. King 6, I can even get on board here with possibly 3-betting to play stacks, just because of the min click is so indicative to me of kind of a weakish kind of, you know, top parish type of hand, or, you know, you hit a 9 with diamonds, or, you know, or something like that. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of my take. I would lean towards a 3-bet. I could sometimes see a call. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, that's probably, yeah. I didn't 3-bet or think of 3-betting, but I definitely don't 3-bet here like enough.
Would you 3-bet with
And
deuce deuce or 6-6 if you had that?
yes, yeah,
Okay,
for
so
sure.
that's where your cutoff is. What about king? What about if you let out with king 9 and you turn top 2?
Yeah, probably actually.
That's interesting. Obviously, king 9
I
is
don't
strong.
know.
King 9 stronger than king 6. It's just now there's more set combos that the guy could have flopped when you don't block anything.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So you call.
Yeah, I called, and I don't know, my spidey senses were kind of going off at this point, and I was kind of hoping to hit a king or 6.
Why is this guy
And
like only put in raises when he has like really really strong hands or
I don't
something?
know, he was totally unknown,
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, yeah, I don't know.
All right.
People, it's such a passive game sometimes. So,
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the river.
yeah, river's a total brick, 5 of hearts.
So 5 of hearts river. And the pot's 166. So, I mean, again, as played, you're probably going to check here if you were a little bit concerned, I assume.
Yeah, I thought about bet folding, but I ended up checking.
Well, I mean, the thing with bet folding is that, I mean, that's a very, very sort of exploitative in the sense that the reason why you would do that is so that you didn't give you're not allowing him to like do that stop raise showdown, like raise turn, check back at the end. 5 brings in a 7-8, which would probably be like 7-8 of diamonds, just like one specific combo. That can be a weird viable line sometimes if you just call turn and then donk lead river on a brick. It's possible, and then again, like you know, if it's a passive table and you get jammed on, I think it's probably a very very easy fold. As played, the more standard route, if you're just going to call the turn raise, is to check the river.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, so that's what I did. I checked,
Okay.
and they bet 70, which is pretty small.
So button bet 70. Okay. So I mean,
So yeah, I
here's the
cycled.
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing, Megan. I mean, he's only betting 70 into 166. So I mean, at this price here, at this price, getting like, you know, over 3-1, I think we probably all kind of call. Where I think it might even be more interesting here is if it was like a large bet or an over bet, or if the guy had clicked it up to like say 70, 80, and then followed up with a $200 bet. Because this is again something that I talk about in Crush Live Poker. I'm pretty sure you're a subscriber. The concept of what I sort of made this term Fifth Street Chicken. Fifth Street Chicken is kind of a term where specifically it relates to exactly this spot where you have a strong but non-nut hand on the turn, usually from out of position. You get raised. You're unsure of whether or not your hand is good, and it can also improve, right? Because you can improve to a full house. And then you call, and then you check the river on a brick, and if your opponent bets again hefty, you seriously consider folding because you think that he's going to check behind with everything that's worse for value after that raise on the turn. And the reason why I call it Fifth Street Chicken is because you're making it look like you're going to call. Now, this is a little bit different because it's a min raise, but I think you have to call here for 70. It is concerning that he bets again after raising turn, though. Because at
Right.
this level, even just with a little mini raise, when he bets the river after raising turn, he's not betting king queen here. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, is he
Yeah.
ever value betting something worse? Like, would he ever play like king deuce suited this way, like which is like top and bottom or something like that? But I still don't think I'm gonna fold here. I've just seen way too much shit. What if you'd bet like 160, 170, something like that?
I would have folded for sure. Yeah.
You would have
I don't know.
folded.
I was just hoping he had like king deuce or 6-9,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, pot size bet at this table is definitely, I don't know. I think king six is probably going to be crushed there
Okay.
after the min raise.
So hero
Yeah.
calls and the reveal.
Deuces.
Deuce deuce.
Set of deuces. Yeah.
You know, what are you gonna do? And by the way, it just goes to sort of show you too. I mean, the guy didn't know you had a hand as strong as king six here, but this is why I love to fast play. Like if I'm that guy on the button, I'm raising you. Now I don't know if you're the type. So Megan, what if you had like let out with like king jack offsuit here, and then UTG calls and then the button raises? I'm talking about on the flop. What would you do? Like say you bet 10 and he went to like 35 on
Under
the
the
flop.
gun behind me?
No, say you have king jack on the flop, king six deuce, you bet 10, under the gun calls, and then the button goes to 35 or 30.
Oh, yeah, with under a gun behind me, I'm definitely folding that, I
Okay.
think.
Well, so then I guess he extracted the most that he could from you, except the fact that his raise on the turn is really dinky. I think he's got to put some more money in here. I mean, it's a disaster for him, the fact that he didn't win more than you when you flop top two. So it
Right.
is what it is.
Yeah.
I appreciate you calling in. Thanks a lot, Megan.
All right. Thanks.
Love me some limped pots. As I always say, I love limped pots. I love limp pots. It's the same concept of attacking the field better for Crush Live Poker subscribers. It's the same concept as barreling, even sometimes as the preflop raiser, but especially attacking the field better, where you can put a lot of pressure on people too through bluffing as well. Unfortunately, Megan got a little bit unlucky in that particular spot. But let's move along here. Sounds like we've got our next caller here on the line, and this is Tyler. Hello, Tyler. You are up next, sir. Hello.
Hey, Bart. What's up, man?
What's going on?
Thanks for taking my call.
No
I got
problem.
a 2-5 hand here. That's I just wanted your thoughts on how I navigated it.
Where's this playing out of?
So this is just a home game,
Just a general area of the country?
North Carolina.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully you haven't been a part of any police raids over there in North Carolina.
No.
Okay.
You've told me that several times.
You called them, I always do that.
You
with
keep
North
checking on me.
I always
You
do
keep
that with
checking
North
on me. I'm
Carolina
fine.
people. I always do that with
Yeah.
North Carolina people because that's where you always hear the police raids busting up
Yeah.
poker games. Okay, so 2-5 home game. And what's the game?
Yeah, it's 2-5. We're gonna be 700 effective with the main villain,
Okay.
and so the main villain is under the gun +1, and we're 1,000 effective with the hijack. The hijack is in there for part of the hand as well.
And
So
hijacks. So you have them both covered, huh?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, so it starts out with the villain and under the gun +1. He open limps.
Okay.
The hijack raises to 25.
Is that about the standard open size over the top of a limp?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. People usually open to 20, and then some people straight open to 25. But yeah, 25 is pretty standard over a limp.
Yeah.
And then I'm next to act in the cutoff. I have King of Hearts and the Queen of Diamonds.
King of Hearts, Queen of Diamonds. Okay.
Yep, and I just elect to call the 25.
Okay. I mean, just so here, I mean, this is maybe a little bit different theoretically between sort of live and online, or what people want to say like sort of an optimal sort of pre-flop. If you were playing a super solid game, it would assume, first of all, it would probably assume no limping, but it would assume that cutoff, that the hijack should be a little bit on the tighter side instead of just straight opening, because there's a limper in there. Should be opening less of a range, and probably king queen off here is a fold. Now you could, I kind of probably like a little bit more of a 3-bet than call here in the cutoff, whereas you can do some flatting on the button with king queen off. But I will say, for all you pre-flop police, this hand is going to show a positive expectation. I just feel like king queen off in position. I don't know how the button was. I mean, and then if you're in a lineup where it's maybe a mistake, it's probably going to be a tougher 2-5 game. late position with king queen off, unless somebody's super nitty raising from up front, I would. I don't want to. I'll definitely get burned by the pre-flop police. I'll get canceled by the pre-flop police if I'm saying king queen off as a call from the cutoff. I mean, I would tend to 3-bet here because you're in the cutoff, but do some flatting on the button. I think that folding is too tight in a 2-5 home game.
Yeah, I wasn't ever thinking of folding.
Yeah.
I figured the 3-bet was definitely an option, but it was more villain dependent, I guess. Like the villain in the hijack, he's more of like he tries to play like a tight, solid style. So I give him maybe a little bit more credit than just like a random person.
Well, I mean, if there was
going
going to be a guy that if there's going to be a guy that you're going to fold king queen off to, then maybe it is. It's probably very, very close. You're not giving up much either way. So you call in the cutoff, okay?
Yep. All right. So I call in the cutoff. So that brings the button in. He calls. The small blind calls, and then the under the gun +1 calls.
And of course,
so we're going.
That's the whole issue, is that you're not closing the action. You can play from the middle, and that's exactly what happens here. So button calls, small blind calls, +1 calls.
Yeah, so we're going 5 ways.
5 ways. 5 ways, including you, right? So 125.
Yeah, I got 4 opponents. Yeah, so I got like 130 in there right now.
Okay. Yep.
So the flop comes down: king of clubs, 10 of spades, 7 of diamonds.
All right, so this is going to be interesting. How are you going to navigate this one, right? So king 10-7, you got top pair. It's super multi-way.
Yep. So it actually checks all the way to me. So the under the gun +1, he checks, and then the original raiser on my direct right, he checks that flop as well.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think I got to bet here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm betting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I bet to 40. I bet 45.
Okay, so you take that kind of smaller multi-way sizing. It's not bad. I mean, there's no front door flush, so there's obviously a lot of, like I said, where a lot of people draw their extra V-pips in games like this, where if people are V-pipping like 30 to 40%, you're going to see a lot of offsuit Broadways being played here, which means that you'll see like a lot of straight draws on 2 Broadway boards. Things like Jack 9 is also double gutted. So hero bet 45. What I will tell you, though, is that I actually tend to, I mean, it's not a flush draw board. If the game is super loosey-goosey and I was in this spot, I would actually bet a little bit more here. I don't think there's anything wrong with 45 on a rainbow board,
right.
Just my thoughts. So you go 45, okay.
Yeah, I go 45, and under the gun +1, he calls, and then the original raiser overcalls.
So under the gun +1 calls, right? So under the gun +1 calls, who's the limper, and +1. Excuse me, the hijack, who's the original raiser, calls. So what do you think the hijack has here over calling? What are the most likely hands?
Like, it's hard to say. Like maybe ace jack or ace queen, like calling just for a gutter. Thinks he's getting like implied odds.
That's exactly what I thought. I thought that you don't usually see people check aces or ace king here at this level on this board. If it's not that, I think the most probable hands are probably, ace queen, ace jack.
And I think he would continue probably with queen jack too.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like he would bet queen jack. That.
Yeah, he might bet that. He might once in a while have like a weak king if you raised it, like king jack, king 9, and now it's multi-way. Well, you have those hands beaten anyway. So I like your spot here for sure. So 260 to the turn.
Yep. And the turn is the 5 of diamonds. So we got king of clubs, 10 of spades, 7 of diamonds, and then the 5 of diamonds.
So it puts a backdoor diamond draw out there, and the king and the 10 are not diamonds. But hero has the queen of diamonds in their hand, but that's a brick. Yeah,
that's a brick, other than the backdoor flush draw.
Yep. Okay.
So they both check again. I'm betting here again. I'm going for value.
I'd probably go 100. I'd probably go 100 here. I might, because I'm trying to get value from somebody who has a king here. If you go really, really tiny, you might even give somebody direct implied odds here with a queen jack. How much did you bet?
I bet 160.
160. Wow. Okay.
So I kind of bet a little chunkier there.
Okay. I mean, it's just interesting because if you go the 160 line, if you go 160, I don't know if this is going to happen. I'm just throwing out a scenario. If you go 160 and +1, let's say +1 calls, the other guy folds, right? Mm-hmm. And now the river's like a deuce, like a brick. Are you going for 3 streets against the +1 limper?
Oh, see,
I mean, I think you should.
You think I should?
Absolutely.
See, in game, I don't know. Well, I don't know, like a yeah, but would he call? I mean, I guess he would call again with like
King nine
King Jack
suited,
or
yeah,
something.
yeah,
King,
something
yeah.
like. I mean, that's what it kind of seems like. You know what I mean? But okay, so you bet. And by the way, someone in the live chat said, "What can the +1 guy have? Queen, queen, or jack, jack?" I mean, sure, it's possible. Remember, he's overcalling though
Right.
the hijack. He's overcalling the +1 on the flop, so that's kind of, So all right, so 5 of diamonds, check, check. Hero bets 160, and
So the under the gun player calls, and then the hijack folds at this point.
wow, so that is what happened. Okay,
That is what happened. Yep, yep.
okay, so there you
So
go. So
yeah,
again,
so now I'm heads up with the under the gun player
yeah, and it's just
or
under.
under the gun +1.
Yeah, so it's just under 600 now. 590 according to my calculations. This guy again, he's the limper, so I'm drooling here in this spot. I mean, obviously you can have a hand like Queen Jack, something like that, but I would love for him to have like a weak king here. Okay, what's the river?
Yep. So the river's the Jack of Hearts.
Jack of Hearts. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And before I can even, I mean, the Jack of Hearts fell, and before I even had time to think about it, he shoves all in,
For how
and he's
much?
got 470.
Shoves for 470.
Yep.
I mean, here's the thing. So another draw that's out there. So again, the flop is King 10 7, turns a 5, river's a jack. So
Yep.
he's betting 470 all in, and 8 9 comes in. I mean, I think it's a pretty trivial fold. I think it would be more interesting if you had King Jack here. Here's the thing. The reason why I think it's
Yep.
a pretty trivial fold here. Another small stakes exploit thing. So the other draw that misses here is Queen Jack, right? And
And it pairs up on
right,
the
and
river.
it pairs up, and that's a thing that a lot of people at these levels do not turn, these pairs into bluffs. So, if the river was a deuce and he shoved, let's say the river was a deuce and he shoved. I'll ask you, if the river was a deuce and he shoved for
Ooh.
470, what would you have thought?
If the river was a deuce and he
Yeah.
shoves for 470,
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy because you just almost never see that line, right?
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's like if especially since I've bet into, I look pretty strong because I bet into 4 players and then I continued on the turn.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he's got like a suicidal bluff there with Queen Jack. If the river's like a deuce, it would be that would be a tough spot. I don't
He'd
know if
have
I
to
would even.
he would have to slow play both streets, which is possible. He'd
Right.
almost be like representing 7-7. Here's the thing about if the river's a deuce and he were to ship here and you had king queen, so it was king 10 7 5 deuce instead of the jack at the end.
Mm.
He'd have to slow play 7-7. You'd think, oh, that's rare with the guy behind him, but it's just so rare to ever see somebody do like shove with queen jack or 8-9, which are the draws that miss on a deuce river, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, in a bet of 470, even though it's not a massive bet, it's on a larger size bet for the game size. I mean, those bets are usually fairly serious. And like, I just didn't have any reads on this particular player either. He was a new player.
Mm-hmm.
I had no reads at all. I hadn't really even seen a showdown from him yet. So
Low limit poker cash games podcast, who does a great podcast over there, says that king jack is basically the same as king queen. Yeah, I mean,
and is the same as ace king in my mind, right? I mean, it's just a one pair hand.
except that
I
you
don't
wouldn't
think he's
except that you wouldn't have ace king in this spot because you would 3-bet pre, and then mathematical says this is really the bottom
Sure.
part of your value range that you arrive with, which is definitely true. Because
Yeah.
king jack
Yeah,
is now,
it is.
if you had king jack, you'd have 2 pair. You already had king 10. You're probably not playing king 9. So I think that as played, this is a pretty trivial fold. I just think that it's a more interesting spot if you had king jack on the surface or if the river's a deuce. What ended up happening?
Yeah. So I did fold.
Okay.
I just couldn't. I mean, I folded basically because Queen Jack paired up, and I didn't see him shoving.
Right.
I figured he would just check it down with if he ran into a pair of jacks. So,
Yep.
yeah, I folded, and I did not find out what he had.
Oh, you never found out what he had?
No, never found out. But
No, I mean,
it felt a little strange in game, but the more I think back on it, I feel like it's a much easier fold. In game, I didn't really want to make the fold, but I did.
I mean, I can't even really come up if he's not bluffing Jack X here. I can't even really come up with a bluff. I mean, the other thing too that he might, I don't know. No, you have the queen of diamonds in your hand. I was trying to think of some sort of straight that had picked up diamonds on the turn, but that's really ace queen of diamonds and queen nine of diamonds. Those are two gut shots that if you limped in with, but he can't have those because you get the queen of diamonds. So that's also important to look back in your hand reading too, where, you know, look at your hand to look at, see if some of these hands are possible. But I wouldn't think twice about this one, but I think it's also interesting what you would do with king jack. Can you make that fold in real time with this given action?
Right. Would you fold king jack if the river was a jack of hearts and I had king jack? Is that a fold? Like, where do you draw the line? Like, I feel like maybe calling with like king 10 plus, because like I could see him maybe having like jack 10 and just like, you know, just trying to hit two pair or trips and then running into that jack and
that's a
not
thought,
thinking and shoving.
That's a thought there too. I mean, we're gonna go pretty far down the line. Jack 10 with maybe diamonds, right? He can have some 10x of diamonds. By the way, those would be the bluff hands, maybe taking some 10x of diamonds and bluffing. But again, I think it's not. I mean, I think it's one of these ones where I can't give you the answer. I think it's pretty close with king jack. I think it depends on how crazy the game is. If I'm playing like in a nitty like Vegas game, I probably would fold. Don't tell anybody about that, but I probably would. In a home game, maybe I would call. But here, I think it's a no-brainer fold.
Yeah, sure. So, awesome. All right, cool deal.
Thanks for the call.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Again, guys, if you want to get on the show, take a look at the link in the description. You must pre-submit your hand. And if you're a Crush Live Poker subscriber, I always read them all. I'll give you a personalized response. If you're not, our moderator extraordinaire, Michael G, shout out to that guy. He will read them and he passes along the best ones to me. By the way, look out for an announcement for you subscribers. We're going to be doing an NFL subscriber survivor pool, which we haven't done in a few years since pre-COVID. And I don't even know if I did in 2019. So much fun. I'm glad I got a pool notification from officepool.com to remind me to try to reset my pool. Hopefully we'll get a couple hundred people in there. And again, if you didn't catch the beginning of the show, I actually spent a lot of time this afternoon. I didn't think it was going to take me that long to review the Andy Garrett Han hand from Friday night, which was Ace King of Diamonds versus Queen Queen and 5-6. And I mean, I don't know if this is going out on the limb, but I actually thought I was very surprised at the way that Garrett played the hand, and I don't think it was correct on the turn. Very interesting hand. And he ended up getting Andy off the best hand, and he lost $200,000 to a pair of fives. Super, super interesting hand, especially since we recently talked about how difficult it is to play sometimes in the middle. All right, let's go to Joe E. Joe E is our next caller. Hello, sir. You're up next.
Hey, Bart. How you doing, man?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. What is David? You know David Ramsey? He says, better than I should be, or something like that.
Yes, my parents love Dave Ramsey. Every single time I do anything, they're like, hey, did you see this? So he's talking about this now? And I'm like, no, I didn't see that.
I want to go on a little tangent about Dave Ramsey, besides the fact that he's sort of a right-wing, a little bit of a right-wing nut job, just a little bit, you know, not that bad, but he's an interesting one where so his whole, you know, I'm into finances and financial stuff. His whole approach to telling people on how to get out of debt, and it's not the most EV, but I can understand why he does it. And his whole approach is pay off your mortgage no matter what. Pay off your mortgage no matter what. Who cares? And as a numbers guy, from a poker perspective, if I have a $500,000 mortgage, and let's say I got a mortgage like a few years ago, I'm at a fixed 3% rate, right? And then of course the interest from them really, you know, it's really costing me, you know, maybe 2 to 2.5% with the tax deduction. Why would I ever pay that off if I can beat that through even non-risky investments?
Just stick all that extra
like an index
cash
fund.
Flow in a freaking index fund or like an ETF or something.
Right, exactly. But I think for a lot of people, they don't have the self-control if they come into money, right? Like if they get an inheritance or who knows, they come into money somehow, they just can't budget it out. So I think for most people, maybe that's a thing. But anyways, I digress. All right, you got a hand for us?
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting because I was listening to the call-in show last week or 2 weeks ago, and you had a call from Tampa Hard Rock from Gabe, and I had literally just sat next to him for my whole session like the day prior, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know this guy.
Oh yeah.
So it was kind of interesting. But so we're at Tampa Hard Rock. the game structure for this was actually like really weird. People were trying to figure it out like as we were playing, because normally the bigger game that runs there is a 10-10 with a big blind 10 ante. So there's always a 10 dead from the big blind. Literally that week, I think it was the day prior, they changed it from the dead ante to 3 blinds to 10, 10, 10. So, and everyone was like, what is happening? What's going
10,
on?
so
But
10
like,
on the button? Is that the third blind?
no, it goes small blind, middle blind, big blind, and then of course action would start under the gun. But yeah, there was 3 blinds of $10.
Yeah, I don't know if I've actually seen that setup. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's, you know, obviously you see games that are straddled, right? Or if you're straddling in a game where they have the same small and big, like if you're playing a 5-5, it would be 5-5-10. But I haven't seen one where it's the same blind. The thing that always annoyed me when I went up to the Bay Area is they play 3 blinds, but they have like the little blind on the button. I always forget. Like they'll play 2-5-10 where the 2's on the button, and like, you know, maybe some people limped, and I have some piece of cheese that I would fold. But then I realized that it was no, not even two, it was like, it's like 2-5-5. It's some partial amount on the button where it's like you should be almost completing with anything. So this is 10-10-10. Okay.
Yes, yeah, and it was really weird. No one liked it. We also had an under the gun mandatory straddle to 20.
So you have 4 people. 4 people have money in front. 4
money in,
money.
yeah.
Okay.
And we were 5-handed at this point because it was a little bit later in the evening. The main game was going. We were at the must move, and so we had 5 people at this point. So the only person that didn't have money in pre-flop was the button.
Yeah, that can get a little interesting. So under the gun is the button. I actually and I've talked about this before because I would see this in Texas games quite a bit, like your setup exactly in Texas games. And I had a guy email me this question, and it's like, well, what do you open from the button? Well, it's not a button range because you've got all of the unknown hands behind you.
Yeah, you have
5-handed is a little bit
hands behind you.
Yeah, 5-handed is a little bit different, but I mean, we were sometimes playing in Texas where, you know, there might be 6 straddles or like 2 people and a quad straddle, right? So cutoff or button was first, 9-handed. And it's like, what do you open? We certainly don't open a button range, but you can open looser than like an under the gun range because you're going to be inevitably in position. So it's kind of a
ultimate,
bit of a mix. Yeah. Okay. So 5-handed.
Yeah. So we're 5-handed. I'm going to be effective this hand with 26-35. There is another guy that does call pre-flop, but he ends up folding on the flop. So he would have been effective at like 900 or something like that, like 900, 950. The villain. So what's interesting about this hand to start with is the villain who's going to be the main villain in this hand. He and I, along with another one of our friends, had just been on a week trip to DC to play poker at the MGM National Harbor. And so even though I don't have a lot of felt experience with this guy, like I haven't played like a bunch of hands with him at the same table, we had literally just spent a week together. And that whole time, we'd either been playing together or we'd talk strategy,
like buddies.
Went over hand reviews.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, even though we don't have a lot of felt history, like we do know each other decently well and like how we think about the game.
Okay.
So I don't know if that will come into play or not, but anyways, so straddle happens. So it's 10-10-10 under the gun straddle. The villain is on the straddle. The button just folds, so he's out of there. Okay. It's on me. I'm in the small blind with Jack of clubs, 10 of clubs.
All right, so you're in the small blind, second to act, Jack of clubs, 10 of clubs, and I would definitely open here, and I'd probably make it from out of position. Well, you guys are just over 100. I mean, you're not super deep with the straddle.
Yeah, exactly.
I might make it like 80, 70, 80 to disincentivize the call from the straddle, and that's going to put the 10-10-10 guys. I mean, that's a good chunk. So that's where I would think about. What'd you do?
I went 80, and I was wondering if that was going to be my first question. If that's too small? I've asked a couple of other people about this, and they were like, "Oh, that's not small. Like I would at least go like maybe like 110 to like 120 here."
6x.
I mean, there's the guy in the blinds were aggressive. You know what I mean? They're not going to be.
I mean, if the guys in the blinds are aggressive, though, the more you raise, the more they can 3-bet as a proportion of the pot. Think about that though too. So if you keep the side, I think 80 is fine, but that's even another reason why you wouldn't go super huge if you were to go like 120 and then get 4-bet to 400 or something like that. So you go to 80. Okay.
So I go to 80. The middle blind is a solid guy. I've played with him a couple times before. He's I think he's a pretty solid player, but he ends up flatting.
Which middle blind? Like the guy in
the 80.
The third
So on
blind.
the small blind, there's the middle blind, and then the big blind would be the last blind, and then the straddle is going to be the last to act.
All right, so I'm gonna say the big blind, the guy to your left, and what does he do?
Yes, he just flats. He
Okay.
just calls.
Wow, that's weird. I don't know if I'd
Yeah,
ever call a hand there in that spot. This is even more
yeah,
extreme.
it's
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah.
he calls.
So then an older gentleman. He's definitely not an OMC, but he was a little tilted at that point. I had just stacked him probably half an hour earlier with a run out. That was he flopped huge, and I sucked out on him pretty bad. So he flats in the technical big blind.
So the third, I'm gonna put it up as third blind. So big blind
Yep.
calls, third blind calls. Okay.
Yep. And then now the villain who was on the straddle, he makes it 400.
Wow. Here's just a 400. I mean, I think that this is just a fold. I mean, I don't know if you're a CLP sub, but this is this is the definition of the stuff that I went over the last couple weeks. I mean, I know Jack 10 suited is a pretty hand, but you do not want to call. I mean, it's either a 4-bet. I mean, it's either a 4-bet as a bluff or a fold. I mean, you can't. I don't want to call here and then be sort of out of position. I think to these other guys. I mean, you certainly can defend if you were heads up.
Yeah, but with the other people, especially with the shorter stack, that he might just jam over it.
You've got that. That's another consideration, like you said, is the possibility of maybe someone getting tricky with a back jam. But
yeah. Because when the older guy called the 80, he only had like 800 left, 800, 850 left, something like that. And so I ran this hand by a couple of other people, and I actually ran it through the CLP Discord as well. And a couple of the guys were like, yeah, I think this is just like a 4-better fold here. Like, it's not, you don't really want to be calling here.
I think it is. So what you called?
Yeah. I ended up calling. Yeah, I wasn't. Looking back at it, I'm not really happy with that because I'm so dominated. I'm out of position here, especially like if someone back jams. But the original the middle blind, technically you said it's the big blind. He ends up folding, and then the third blind just flats again, and he only when he flats the 400, he has maybe like 350 or 400 left.
Oh, that's crazy. So third blind, super short calls. Okay, so now the pot's like 1200 plus, right?
Yeah, 1280 I have.
Okay, all right, let's go to the flop.
Okay, so the flop comes the 10 of spades, the 5 of spades, and the 3 of clubs.
So 10, 5, 3. You've got Jack 10 of clubs. The pot is 1280. You guys have like 2200 left. Plus, there's a shorty in there with like 350 who never should have called. He should have either back jammed or folded. Okay, I assume you check.
I check. The third blind checks as well. And now villain goes for about a 1/3 sizing. He makes it 400.
So straddle bets
makes it 400. Yeah,
400. Well, I mean, you've got the you got the backdoor flush draw here too. I mean, you can't. Yeah. I think if you get here like this, you have to continue with top pair, right?
Yeah, but especially to like a 1/3 sizing. Yeah,
I mean, it just demonstrates how difficult this can be, where you're basically folding everything else. I mean, you have to continue here. At least you can't get check jammed on by the guy in the middle because he's all in, right?
Exactly, because he would be all in for less.
So
in my thinking. Yeah, my thinking was like if I call here, I do have a pot size bet left, and if he jams on me on the turn, then I've got like a interesting decision to make, where I'm probably leaning toward folding.
Well, I think it depends. But so what is the guy? We gotta move a little quicker. What's the guy in the middle do? Does he fold?
He folds. Yeah, so I call in the middle guy folds.
Right, so third blind folds. So now the pot is like 2080, and like you said, it looks like you have like what 1800 left or something like that.
Yeah, I have 1835 left effective.
Okay. All right. Turn.
So turn is the 4 of clubs.
Well.
Yeah.
So you pick up a flush draw.
So I check in flow.
Yeah.
And he thinks about it for probably 10 or 15 seconds, and he checks back.
So it goes check, check. So I want to move back to something that I watched over. This is why I love the live chat. Someone said, okay to go for stacks now. Then I'm assuming he's talking about on the flop. So let's go back to the flop real quick. So it's 1280, and you've got what 18. You have 2200 left. Is there ever merit to check raising the flop here for protection? Because you can't check raise and fold. You're going to be pot committed here.
Yeah.
It's a little. I think with a third guy in there, you can gain some information by him possibly going all in and then that freezing the guy. I don't think I would do a whole lot of that. I think with these stack sizes, just really quickly. Now, as we move to the turn, you have less than a pot size bet left.
Mm-hmm.
The turn's what did you say? What club it was again?
4 of clubs.
Yeah,
so
it's
it should be 10 of spades,
Yep.
5 of spades,
3 of clubs, 4 of
3 of
clubs.
clubs, and then the 4 of clubs.
So a couple things on this. Number one, to answer your question, if he jammed now, it's a very easy call because he could be, he might have picked up like a wheel draw here with any ace. Now you've picked up the flush draw here too. So if you're behind, at least you've got some equity.
A lot of outs, yeah.
So if that happens, you basically have to call. And I think at that point, even if he bets like 1/3 of the pot, if you were to go, so like if he bet like 600-700, I mean, at that point, you probably have to jam now too, because less than 1/3 effective. You don't want him to just get like a free look at something if he's never bluffing or whatever. But so now what I'm going to say is that he doesn't always have to have nothing here to check this back. Although it is because when I was looking at this, I remember when you submitted this as an email, I was like, oh, the 4, some guys will definitely check back over pairs here. Now, with that being said, though, the setup pre-flop, though, you really shouldn't have much for him to worry about, like 6-7. I don't know if you would open and call with pocket 5s, pocket 3s, something like that. Ace 2. I mean, all those hands really should be fold. So if I'm your opponent, I don't know why I wouldn't. I mean, I'm playing for stacks with an overpair here for sure, because there's too much money out there, and it just, unless you flopped a set of 10s, right? You probably shouldn't. I should have you beat with kings, queens, aces, something like that. So that's a little bit interesting. Okay, check.
Yeah, and that was kind of my thinking too. Like I'm thinking, oh, awesome! Like I have a flush draw now to go with it. I have top pair. I'm like, there's no way if he bets any amount that's less than all in, like I'm not jamming on him here. So like my plan was to 100% jam. If he made any kind of bet that was less than all in. And then when he checks it back, I'm like, on this board with 2 flush draws where he's going to stack my pocket jacks, he's going to stack my pocket queens, he's got aces or kings. Like, is he really not just going to be putting all the money in here trying to get max value? Like, especially if I have like a spade draw, like king jack of spades, or like, something like ace jack of spades.
I tend to agree. I tend to agree with you with the pot size and the pre-flop setup that he should be betting most overpairs off. All right, so what's the river?
Yeah. So the river's the 9 of spades.
Okay.
9 of spades. So the spades get there, and pot's still the same, 20-80.
Yep.
And I decide to check here because I think like if I jam myself or if I block, like I'm basically committing myself if I block, and so he can jam anything basically and if you were to call off.
If you were to upfront jam, you're just basically turning your hand into a bluff. You're never getting called by worse. I mean, I think it's interesting if the river is like an offsuit 9 or something like that. Like, are you ever betting for value here, like a ridiculously small block size to get called by like an ace high type of hand to make it look like maybe you busted out on front door flush draw? But now that the flush comes in, you run out of value here.
Yeah, exactly. So I decided to check, thinking like I would much rather check and have him have to bluff it and be able to make a decision rather than just jamming it and never getting called by worse. Like I'm never good if I jam, he calls.
So Ryan's poker channel says rep the spades. He basically can't have them. And what he's saying is that he would be double barreling a lot of spades. I mean, if the guy has like a ace X of spades type of hand, that picks up a combo draw on the turn. You think he probably would go balls to the wall with that. So that is an interesting thought, turning top pair here into a bluff. But at the same time, I'm a little bit perplexed with what range checks back turn here from this guy 3-betting with this thing. So you check, okay.
So I check, and he again thinks for about 10 or 15 seconds and says all in.
All in.
So he jams for my effective 1835.
This is a very interesting river because, again, for what I said before, you would think that he would be doing a fair amount of double barreling here with spades. If he was here's the thing too, like if he was pot controlling like some sort of overpair, is he going to choose the all-in sizing now when the front door spade comes in? Now obviously you can do that with you could do that, I suppose, with like ace with the ace of spades, which blocks most of your flush possibilities. And now you're really only left with like king queen of spades in this pre-flop configuration, or queen jack of spades if you call with it pre. or jack, something like that. And then you'd have to check the river when you made it after it went check, check. It's highly unlikely. So that's why you can get away. That's why he can bet ace ace here, with the spade. With that being said, though, if you're not checking flushes and you don't have many on the river, when you do check, it usually means you don't have a flush. So if he had like a hand like ace king with a spade in it, like the ace of spades or something like that he chose not to barrel on turn, he could obviously try to bluff you here at the end. I'm not looking at the live chat. I find it very, very curious here because of the check back on turn that he would jam river now when most spade draws, I would assume, are getting bluff are getting
bet by me.
No, well, most spade draws by him are getting bet on the turn, and then also like if he's checking back in over pairs, you're really going to go for all in sizing now. I might get very curious here. I got to tell you, I might get very, very curious here.
Yeah, and I was very curious. I even told him, like, when I was thinking about it, I was like, man, I'm like, this just feels so much like ace of spades, king X. I'm like, I really feel like what he's squeezing to 400 pre is like ace king of spades, ace queen of spades, ace jack of spades. He can't have ace 10 because the 10 of spades is out there. He can't even have ace 9 because ace 9 of spades comes on the river. So I'm thinking here, he's really only repping 3 combos of ace king of spades, ace queen of spades, and ace jack of spades. Like, that's really all he's really repping here. Like, if he does decide to check back some over
he can
pairs,
like I said, he can put you in a spot with the ace of spades, knowing you don't have a flush, and then get into the situation where we're curious and you get looked up with a 10. What ended up happening? What'd you do?
So I ended up tank calling, and I'm like, I just think you're betting so much of your value off on the turn. I'm like, I have to call here. Okay. And so I put in the call, and he says, yep, he's a good call, you're good. And he turns over ace of spades, king of diamonds.
Oh, we talked through it. I didn't know the result, but yeah, I mean, the whole thing makes sense, right? I mean, we spent a long time with it, so I'm not going to rehash it again, but I think we correctly talked through exactly what ended up happening. So I appreciate the call,
pretty much.
Joey.
Thanks a lot. Mark. Appreciate it.
I got to just poke something out here. So as I say, I always like to keep this as interactive as possible. So where was the comment here in the live chat? Natural born reeler. Bart, I prefer the old card format. I don't like the big white screen and card text. Just saying. Michael G. What is it with this guy, huh? Is this like one of those comments too with the when people like put in the YouTube like best of videos like repeat, rerun. Anyways, again, guys, if you want to get on the show, you can do so. Click on the little link in the description. You need to pre-submit your hands. Let's go to our last caller here. Last caller, and this is Brian. Hello, Brian. You are up last. Thank you.
Hey, Bart. How are you?
Pretty good. Better than I should do. Or what is it? Better than I deserve. Better than I deserve.
Not sure I've heard that before.
That's a Dave Ramsey thing. Okay, you got a hand for us.
Yeah. So I got a 10-10 hand from Parks for you.
Another 10-10 hand. Oh, we always seem to have a Parks hand in here with Michael G reading a lot of these submissions. 10-10 Parks. Is this a Tuesday night or what?
No, this was on I think it was a Wednesday.
So they always get this game now?
Lately, this game's been running like all the time, like every day, like even on like a Wednesday, Thursday, we sometimes get like 2 or 3 games, like, and then on Tuesdays we'll get like 7 or like usually 6 or 7, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's Michael G was telling me that he saw like 6 or 7 games last week on a Tuesday. So 10-10 at Parks is 3K cap or something?
Yeah, and the straddle's usually on, but this game the straddle wasn't on.
Okay.
So it's just regular 10-10.
So you're a little bit deeper than, well, obviously with just the $10, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're 2,200 effective, about 7-handed. So I opened from the low jack with 7 of spades, 7 of hearts.
7-handed. So the low jack is almost under the gun.
Yeah, under the gun one. Yeah.
Yeah, under the gun +1. So 7-handed. So I'm just gonna put +1/low jack, +1/low jack. Hero has what?
7 of spades, 7 of hearts.
7 of spades, 7 of hearts. And you open to what?
I opened to 30.
Is that about the standard open size?
Yeah, usually 30 or 40.
Okay.
Like if
because there's no $5 chips, right? Because at 5-10 I make it 35, but you guys don't have $5 chips, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, folds to the cutoff who 3-bets to 120.
So cutoff 3-bets to 120, which is 4x. Okay.
Yep. And folds around to me, and I call.
So your heads up.
Yep.
So you don't have to worry about being, multi-way. 7-7's kind of borderline anyway. Sometimes it can, sort of win at showdown even without flopping a set, but it's very easy to defend here.
Yep.
Heads up. So hero calls.
Yeah, and I guess a little background on the villains. Mm-hmm. So the villains, this Asian guy, probably in his 20s or 30s. He doesn't play 10-10 that often. I think he plays like more 2-5.
Okay.
So
taking a shot.
But he's not. I don't know if he's necessarily taking a shot. Like, he's not like new. Like, I played with him before, but like he's not like a typical like 10-10 reg that plays.
Would that be like Michael G if you saw Michael G in the game? Something like
that? I've played 2-5 with Michael G before.
I know he's played 10-10 though too, but he doesn't usually play it. So
yeah, I don't think I've played 10-10 with him.
So normally when you have a guy that's playing, whatever you call it, and for whatever reason up a stakes, I would say in general it's a little bit snugger, a little bit less likely to bluff,
less likely to get out of line.
A little more value oriented at first. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So I defend, and the flop comes Jack 9-6 rainbow.
Okay.
And then the diamonds are relevant in this hand. So I believe the Jack was not a diamond. I believe it was the 9 that was a diamond.
All right, I'm going to put up Jack of clubs, 9 of diamonds, 6 of spades. Okay.
Yep. So I check, and he bets 90, and I think I have a pretty clear call here.
So check 90, and hero calls. So yeah, I mean, just a little thing on here too that, I think you're folding out like 3, 4, 5s and below, I assume.
Yeah.
Okay. 7-7's got.
Yeah, also a little backdoor.
Yeah, 7-7's got a little backdoor. It's an overcard to a 6.
Yep.
And again, this is a situation here where you're folding out like 5-5 in deuce, but you would and even though those are better hands right now than a hand like King 10, you'd much rather have a call with King 10. It's all about future equity and how much you can improve your hand. Yep. All right. So pot now is 430-ish. Okay.
Yep. So then the turn is gin for me. It's the 7 of diamonds.
Oh, this is interesting. Because now the reason why this is interesting is because 7 of diamonds turn. So the board's Jack 9, 6, 7. The reason why I find that's interesting is because you'll start to see a lot of guys kind of get a little bit antsy about continuing to put money in here with like aces, kings, and queens. Right. It is really odd. And again, like if you were to quote unquote sim this spot, I don't know how often we ever see in a 3-bet pot a check call lead from the out of position guy. I mean, there must be scenarios for it, and you would think, and usually, and the times that I do it live is usually when I've seen solver outputs almost never do it, is when I make a flush from out of position. And I think the reason why they don't do that is to sort of stay balanced in a sense. But on straightening cards, especially ones that are going to get checked back a lot, I wonder if you could ever have a lead range here. I just feel like a little antsy that this is going to get checked back a lot. And again, it's this whole thing of building a pot up and getting called by hand, betting to get called by hands that will call you but are going to otherwise check back, which we always think a lot about that on the river. I know it would be non-standard.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I was kind of like caught by surprise that I actually banked a set on the turn. Like I was like ready to check like almost any turn like immediately, so I just kind of just checked and flow there.
Yeah.
But so he bets 220.
So hero checks, and the guy does bet.
He does bet,
and he goes 220.
Yep.
And cutoff bets 220. I mean, I'll give you my thoughts here. I would against, especially with the setup that you gave against a guy like this, maybe playing up, I do not want to give away the betting lead at the end here. Meaning, like if you're thinking about, like if you were playing against some sort of all-star guy and it was the right texture, and you're like, all right, I'm going to take this hand and put it into a check call line as a strong hand so that he can't just liberally triple barrel me when I don't raise before the river in other hands, right? We would sometimes do that. But against a guy like this, though, if you check call and the rivers are breaking, he checks back kings or aces, this is a disaster, right? I'm definitely check raising here.
Yeah. So I guess my thought was I wanted to go like around like a size that would set up like a pot size river jam. So I decided to go like 3x, about 630.
So if you go to 630, you're putting in right around 1250, and the pot would be like right around 1700, and that's what you have about left in your stack. Is that, I just did that real quick, something like that, right?
Roughly, yeah. It was like, I think the pot would have been like 14 or 15, and I had like maybe like 13 something.
All right, so hero check raises to 630. The only thing that I would say about that, because here, like a 3x check raise is not anywhere real close to even pot, right? Like pot's 430, he goes 220. If you were to, I'm actually not the best at this. I don't play a whole lot of, there are guys with PLO, but if you were to go pot, like he bets 220 into 430, that's 650. You call would be like 850. Pot would be like somewhere around 1,000, right?
Right.
Pot size bets on the river, check raising to leave a pot size bet on the river, that's still a lot if you're trying to go for stacks. A lot on the river left. I mean, I kind of want to leave like 3/4 to 2/3 so that the guy doesn't make some sort of hero fold. So say you went to 800 here and he called, the pot would be 2,000, and you would have like what, 1,300 left. You know what I mean?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
It's just something a little bit subtle, but okay. So you go to 630.
Yep. And then he doesn't take too long before calling.
All right. So this guy calls. So cutoff calls. You put in 1260 on the turn. So now the pot is probably right around, I'm going to put it 1,700, even though maybe a couple dollars more, a couple dollars less. And 720, 850. And you guys have like 1,300 to 1,400 left, like you said. So what do you think his range of bet calling turn here is?
So I think he probably has all the overpairs still. Maybe some ace jack suited. And then like all the flush draws. There's still jack X of diamonds available. And then I'm not sure if he has hands like queen 10 suited or king 10 suited, which is double gutted on this board. Like I don't know if he 3-bets those pre-flop, or like a pocket eights type of hand that's now.
I mean, to make it very simple, for the most part, this is going to be at least a jack plus, mainly over pairs and diamonds, right? That's what.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's calling with like the straight draws or 3-betting those hands pre-flop.
So okay, I mean that's what we want to see, a non-diamond river here, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So the river, of course, is the ace of diamonds.
The ace of diamonds. Oh God, the ace of diamonds. So not only does it bring in the diamond, but now you could get oversetted with ace. Although it's interesting that it's the ace of diamonds, which means he can't have ace X of diamonds.
Right. It does cut out some of his flush draws. Sure.
I mean, I think you got to check and pray.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, like it was, the stack sizes were so awkward. Like, I think if we're deeper, I'd probably like kind of like bet fold this, like to try and get like a crying call out of like a kings or queens type of hand. But like, it's just like so awkward. I think if I had bet this river.
I mean, here's the thing. Mathematical 55 says I'm jamming all rivers. I think that was before the ace of diamonds came on the river, but most rivers. You know, it's one of these things where, again, if there was a situation where this guy was calling your check raise on the turn with like a hand like king with the king of diamonds, okay, something like that,
right?
Or like, I'm trying to think, some other overpair, queen with the queen of diamonds, although that doesn't have a straight draw. And it blocks a lot of your semi-bluff, so it's not even necessarily the best bet call for them on the turn, but you made it kind of small.
Right.
I don't know if people will find and recognize, like if you're in that spot, let's say that you bet call the turn, right? Let's say you're your opponent, and you bet call the turn with kings, with the king of diamonds, right? You bet call, you get check raise, you call. Now the river's the ace of diamonds, and the guy checks. That hand very well might need to be turned into a bluff, right? At the end here.
Yes, I agree.
And I don't know if these guys find that.
Right. I was thinking that, like, if I was playing against like a good, capable 10-10 reg, like I would definitely consider them having hands like kings and queens with a diamond in their range and turning those into a bluff.
So I assume you check.
Yeah, I decided to check.
Okay. Pray.
And yeah, I was praying.
Yeah.
And unfortunately got the bad news that he ends up jamming.
The cutoff jams?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we just talked about it, man. I mean, whether this would be an overfold or what, and I know, it's one of these things where you can go down this rabbit hole where it's like, well, if I never check raise the turn and then check the river when I actually make my semi bluff with diamonds,
it's like one of the best hands.
Isn't this one of the best hands I can have?
Right.
If I'm not defending with like 10-8 suited, right? With a straight.
Yeah. And I think from a theory perspective, like this is like I have to call this against like a good, capable reg. But like the question is, can I make an exploitative fold here?
Well, the question is, do you ever check are you ever supposed to check raise the turn with a big draw on diamonds and then check the river? Like if you had queen 10 of diamonds here, king 10 of diamonds, are you supposed to be checking the river? It's not.
Yeah, it seems strange because like.
Yeah, I might make it. I mean, I think I'm gonna have to make a tough fold here, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of what I thought, and I did end up making like a tough fold. I tanked for a couple minutes and folded.
So did you ever find out what he had?
So in that session, I did not, but then I played with him a couple days later, and he was nice enough to tell me that he did have king queen of diamonds.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's a straight draw too on the turn, nut flush draw, second nut flush draw.
So if he has king queen of diamonds, and let's say I'm him, and I know you're a decent player, I don't know if I like that sizing. You can go a couple of different ways with this. Like, if the theory says you're supposed to call with 7-7, then he's supposed to take the max sizing, right? Like, maybe he's supposed to polarize himself, right, to have the hero. But the reality of it is, if I have king queen of diamonds there and the ace of diamonds comes and you check raise turn, you're probably going to have a set, right? You're probably going to have a set, or in another setup like a straight. Do I want to try to make a hero fold? Which is why, like, if I had kings with a king of diamonds, it's a put you in a shitty spot.
Yeah.
Again.
Sure.
Then if I'm up against a guy that's not a good player, you better believe I'm jamming because I don't expect them to fold a set like you did.
Yeah, they're not folding a set.
Yeah. So that there's two sizings to be made there according to the player from your opponent's perspective. Now, I think maybe he chose the wrong one against you if you're capable. So, all right, Brian, thanks for the call.
Oh yeah, thank you for the feedback.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us this week. That was a fun one. Again, if you do want to get on this show, you can check out the link in the description. We'll give you instructions on how to submit your hand because you need to pre-submit. We'll be back as normal. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. We will not be back as normal. I know. I apologize for skipping around some Mondays. I actually had, unfortunately, a death in the family. My uncle up in Maine. And, it's very unfortunate. He was struggling with Alzheimer's, actually, for several years. So it wasn't necessarily unexpected. And it's like one of these things. Alzheimer's is a fucking thing, man. It's just terrible. If anyone's ever had like a relative that's had it, it's just, towards the end, man, he was just really... And then he just stopped eating. But we have to go up for the services up in Maine over the weekend. The funeral's on Monday. So we'll be back Monday night. So the call-in show will go on Tuesday next week. Tuesday next week at 5. So I'll put it up on the live stream. I don't really see any other Mondays coming up where we have to change it, but it'll be on Tuesday of next week. But if you do want to get on the show, you can click on a little link in the description, and that will show you how to get it. And again, I spent a lot of time on this video this afternoon checking out Andy versus Garrett versus Han. Very, very interesting spot where Garrett plays a $200,000 pot and loses to a pair of fives. So with that, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you guys all for keeping it real in the live chat as always. And we will see you all next time.
And let that real shit provoke. See, you wanna reload, then you'll get smoked. Then I hope that to fade you on Dre Day. But Dre Day only meant Easy's payday. All of a sudden, Dr. Dre is the G thing. But on his old album covers, he was a she thing. So nigga, please don't step to these motherfucking real G's. Every day it's a new rapper, claiming to be dapper than the Dre star. Sober than a bitch, but betray the role of gangster. Ain't broke a law in your life, yet every time you rap, you yap about the guns and knife. Just take a good look at the nigga and you'll capture the fact that the bastard is simply just an actor who mastered the bang and the slang and the mental of niggas in Compton, Watts, and South Central. Never ever once have you ran with the turf, but yet in every verse claim you used to do the dirt. But tell me who's a witness to your fucking work? See, you never handle business, so say the drama jerk. Nigga straight kill me.